ideally what you're passionate about and what you can make a big difference in is the same, but it's not always the same. So like I didn't 20 years ago all of a sudden say, you know what, I really want to be in trash. Like so when we first started this project, we weren't married to a product, we were married to the idea of hope.
Welcome back to Elevate with Liana and Marisha, the space where we rise together through conversations that help us feel well, think deep, and live wide. And today we have with us a woman whose leadership is redefining what's possible at the intersection of business, community, and sustainability.
Yes, this is a special moment for us. Nanette, welcome to Elevate. We're so grateful to have you here with us today.
I'm so happy to be here. I mean, I'm just listening to you guys and I'm happy already. Like it's so positive. The world needs some of that, right? So thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. So, Nanette, let's begin here. Your work today is groundbreaking, but let's start with the seed. Tell us about Project Hope and particularly the moment when you realized that business could be a vessel for hope. When did that possibility crystallize for you?
Well, before I founded Hope in 2012, I was doing work both in the nonprofit and for-profit space. And, the nonprofits are great. They're all about mission. And the big problem, though, is they spend an inordinate amount of time fundraising and aren't able to spend a whole lot of time thinking about impact, and especially not long-term because the fundraising tends to be year to year, right? So the ability to actually affect change long-term isn't there in a way that it should be because of this kind of distraction around funding. And then on the other hand, I also have my seat in the for-profit world, and I'm thinking, wow, for folks who just look at shareholder value, right? When they think about their single bottom line, I mean, there's certainly a lot there, great discipline. If you could find a way to kind of bring those two worlds together, which, by the way, Bono of U2 fame did very, very well with Product Red in the US. I just thought, what a great model. Somebody should do that here. Our version of AIDS would be education. There's a very high learning poverty in the Philippines. And so we thought about, what could we do to enable this funding, this kind of impact? And so I decided, you know what? I'll just give it a try. I've got nothing to lose. Started an FMCG, which I had no experience in, and just thought if I came up with a value proposition, which is water equals classrooms, which is easy to understand, that people might get it and support it, and we could kind of democratize nation building that way.
Oh, this is so powerful, Nanette. And just to see how the impact isn't the afterthought, but it's actually the foundation, and how brilliant coming up and going, okay, I'm going to give it a go. Let me just try, put in simple words that people can get it and see where it goes. It's beautiful. As we were preparing for this episode, what stood out is that you told us something so simple and yet so profound. I am most proud of building a company that inspires. What does inspiration look like to you in the inside of a business model?
So when we first started this project, we weren't married to a product. We were married to the idea of hope, and that people could vote with their money about what was important to them. And so we always have this joke at Hope that our main product looks like it's a bottle of water, but actually it's the idea of hope. So, envision, some helper, going home for the weekend, getting on a bus and needing a bottle of water. She walks into a 7-Eleven and she has 10 different choices of water. And she can say, okay, what does each one of these mean to me, if anything? And she can make a choice to buy a bottle of hope and say, you know what, shareholder X, Y, and Z, maybe don't need that extra 1 peso. But if I buy this bottle of hope, some kid somewhere in the province is at some point going to get a classroom. And so she buys that bottle and she gets on the bus. And we always say, look, even if nobody else on the bus buys the bottle of water, simply by having that moral compass there, maybe somebody's encouraged to let the pregnant woman sit down or help the elderly woman off the bus or do one kind thing, because every little thing matters, right? So that was the thinking, is how do we inspire hope in the community is the baseline. The second is, can we actually galvanize that towards nation building, right? And then the third would be, can we actually convert that into hard cash and do something with it, right? So so that funnel is what we were thinking about.
It's so cool. And to me personally, I'm jumping out of my skin here, because I have been working in the water policy arena for decades with international organization. So that intersection between you and I, between the water, it just speaks volumes to me. And I love how you're using water as a vehicle for hope on top of it. It blows my mind, Nanette.
Thank you. And it was the easiest, right? I mean, given I'm not from the consumer goods space, I wanted a commodity, something that was easy, people would understand. And, water is easy to understand and a classroom is easy to understand, right? It's tangible. So that felt like the best way to go.
Yeah. No. And also knowing how much the Filipinos do value education. It's one of your superpowers in the Philippines, right? Yeah. So, and when you say it's the idea of hope that we love spreading the most, what does that hope mean to you in a world that's often facing so much challenge?
Especially now, right? I mean, if there was
now.
ever a time, which is why this podcast was so compelling, right? Because especially now where it feels like the world is, choose your Armageddon, right? There are just so many things happening out there that feel very hopeless. And so if we can in any way, use this idea to give people a sense that they do have some power, they're not helpless, they can have hope, and that hope actually translates into something tangible, all for it.
And it's all about, again, as this is what brought Marisha and I together. It's like, how can we elevate? How can we empower the thinking, the people, and bring together great minds that are doing good in the world to inspire others? So beautiful. You answered another question about challenges with a remarkable clarity, Nanette. Coin-operated people is the challenge. People driven solely by the single bottom line. That was so brilliant. Marisha and I go, oh, that is so cool.
I love that expression.
Yes. So how did this show up in your journey, and how did you learn as you wrote to simply then move on and move away, and to surround yourself instead with people who think beyond profit?
Yeah, no, so I don't immediately move away. I understand the motivation of folks that are coin operated, right? But I also recognize that it's that kind of thinking that got us to where we are now, which is not a great place. So the first thing I always try to do is try to reframe the value that's brought beyond money, right? And say, look, value is not always translated the same way. And if you need me to translate it, here's how I'm going to do that in dollars and cents, right? So when you think about the investments you make in education, or the marketing value, the storytelling value behind actually investing in education in classrooms and students, if I am able to translate that into a dollar value, sometimes I win them over. But if I'm unable to, I try to move on, because there are enough folks out there who do care about these issues. It does align with their values as a company or as an organization or as an individual, that I don't need to keep trying to kind of, as you will, beat a dead horse, right? So, and a lot of times you will plant a seed, and this has happened to me in the past, and those are always the most gratifying moments, where you plant a seed and you think, oh my God, that was a terrible meeting. They're never going to come around. And then a couple years later, they kind of see the light, or I don't know what happens. They have some moment and they're like, okay, let's get back in touch with those guys. And I think if we are able to maintain our credibility and transparency, around the impact work we do, we usually, they'll come back and be very convinced that we're the folks to work with. And so that's always gratifying.
Yeah. And so I think what I hear most loudly in what you've just said, Nanette, is that it's the critical message for so many entrepreneurs is that alignment is a strategy. And so I think that's such a powerful piece of what you're saying here. Your work operates, Nanette, across two powerful domains, the education and community building through hope and the environmental transformation through PCX. Both are ambitious, both required for you to build new systems where none existed, really. You created something out of nothing, out of nowhere. And so what have you learned about designing solutions that scale, not just in size, but also in meaning? And for someone who's listening to us out there right now, can it be replicated? Can your methodology be replicated, Nanette?
Yeah, so the way I find that we've been very fortunate to be successful in a number of areas, and I find that there is only one recipe to make that happen, and it is if you do a multi-stakeholder approach. So you need to be able to come in and think about, if you cannot wear every stakeholder's hat. I wear a few of them, luckily, so I can kind of triangulate on win-win-wins. But if not, you bring them into into the fold and you say, okay, how do we make this a multi-stakeholder approach? So it's not just benefiting shareholders. It's not just benefiting whatever government and the community, the environment, right? Like, how is this coming out better for everyone? The moment you land on that, and this is a mistake that a lot of nonprofits have, and for-profits, by the way, is, oh, yes, I'm just coin operated and everything else can go to hell. Or, I'm just thinking about, saving the trees, but I'm not really thinking about how this impacts everybody else, the community around you, businesses, government, right? All of those things. If you can come in and take a multi-stakeholder view, find a solution, it may not always be the perfect solution, but you want to start and improve, right? The results always tend to be successful. And when I say success, I want to be careful, right? It doesn't mean, the world is all unicorns and rainbows, but it does mean that progress is being made. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's not so quick. The other thing that I find is folks don't like this, but I tend to align myself with government in a lot of things I do. I rely on government? I do not, because if I do, nothing gets done, right? But I do involve them because in a lot of ways, if I want what I do to scale, it is going to need their buy-in and their infrastructure, if you will, to ensure that I'm going to reach more places than I would if I was just a private sector operation, right? So involve the government to the extent for which it's helpful, create a multi-stakeholder approach, and be willing to accept compromise and not perfection, just to take, baby steps forward. And before you know it, you look back and you'll be amazed at where you are, right? It's like, wow, we came quite a ways, right, in the last, X years. And that's how Hope has done it, right? We started very naive, thinking, okay, we're just going to put one foot in front of the other and see what comes out. And you'll be surprised, folks.
We get that. We get that strategy really well.
Yeah. And with PCX being the first of its kind globally, for example, how did you navigate building that trust and the standards and the credibility in a completely new market?
Yeah, I think being willing to accept that you don't know is super important. So when I came in, this was born out of, I sit on the board of WWF, and I was horrified that I might be trying to help solve one problem in education and then creating another problem in the environment. And so PCX was born out of very small ideas initially. It was like, oh, I'm going to be responsible for my own footprint at Hope. And how do I do that? And, low margin business, small player. And then you get these aha moments along the way. And it's like, oh, well, if I could do it as a small player, low margin business, what does that say for all those other guys out there, right? So you get these aha moments and they kind of snowball. And after a while, we did not expect to come up with a global platform. We were not trying to do that. We were just trying to mind our own business and do the right thing for Hope. But there are enough companies who actually care about the plastic problem out there. And we realized that there isn't an ecosystem. Everybody talks about the circular economy. It so does not exist. All the way, Australia does a good job. But I mean, for the most part, it doesn't really exist. You've got to build it. And there isn't policy and regulation out there that kind of supports that thinking anyway. So what we did is we said, okay, what's missing? And we started to build the pieces as we were walking that bridge, right? Laying each brick on the bridge as we went. And before we knew it, we were the first standard in the world for plastic offsetting. We have two companies in PCX, a nonprofit and a for-profit. The nonprofit only does policy work. It works with governments, World Bank. It works with, lots of folks who are thinking about this from a regulatory point of view. So what does that look like? So we do a lot of that in the nonprofit, as well as being, of course, the standard setter and developing that standard, over time, trying to make it better and better. And then we have the for-profit, and which I was not in favor of, but we did anyway, because Singapore said, if you're going to be selling compliance, you need to be a for-profit because people need to be able to sue you. And I was like, that's fine. That worked. So we spun out a for-profit, which is now doing something we totally didn't expect, is we're now working in the US compliance market. And as coming from a developing country, that's huge, right? It's usually developed countries exporting thing to developing countries. And now we've got the Philippines, the third worst offender for ocean plastic pollution, developing a program and taking it to the US, right? So we are incredibly proud of that.
Yay, bravo.
So fascinating. And just listening, I'm sure Marisha agrees. It's like how innovation can begin simply by asking, well, if there's no system, well, then let me just build a better one, and let me just step by step and just create it.
Build a plane while we're flying it, right? But it's better than having nothing, right? People like to bitch, but you got to do something about it. Get off your butt and do something, right?
No excuses. Love it.
It's precious. I am so loving this conversation, Nanette. So your number one Elevate tip really struck us when we asked you. And you said, and I quote, find something you can have the most impact in. It's not always what you are passionate about. That's such a countercultural idea, Nanette. Tell us more about this shift. What is that like?
Yeah,
more?
No, I mean, ideally, what you're passionate about and what you can make a big difference in is the same, but it's not always the same. So like I didn't 20 years ago, all of a sudden say, you know what, I really want to be in trash. Like that's not what I will. It's like, oh, every girl's dream, trash. Right? That was not how, and if I had to plot my life, absolutely not the way I would have gone, right? However, I just so happened to find myself in a space where I had a voice on the issue. It just so happened to have some people listening to me. And so I thought, I might as well say something about this or do something about this and just see if I can affect some change. And it kind of ran away, and became this big thing without my actually intending it to be, just by saying, am I willing to put myself out there because people are listening and I've got something to say, and it potentially is, to your point, elevating, right? So that's exactly what I did. Or even, being a water producer or all. I mean, that is not how I had plotted my life out. But hey, if I'm able to use my platform to build classrooms for public schools or keep plastic waste out of the ocean or waterways that affect people and planet, hey, why not? Maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
The world needs you, Nanette.
It's such an empowering reframe. For the people trying to find the next chapter. It's not easy. Not everyone knows their purpose and not everyone knows what they want to do. And it's a lovely reframe of it. And it's also when you are aligned, as you mentioned, things just roll. They just happen. Yeah. Right?
And then your work in touches classrooms, Nanette, livelihoods, the circular economy, as you just mentioned, even global corporate behavior. So what
Yeah.
anchors you? What is the deeper why that keeps you moving forward? As you say, you weren't dreaming as a kid to be in trash or in plastics. So what is it that anchors you?
I think, and I don't think this is something that's unique to me, but and I mean, you guys have this show. I'm sure you feel this as well. But if there's some part of you that can make the world slightly better, I'd really hate to, at the end of my life, think that I was a waste of space. Am I interested in being net positive? Even if it's just in a little way. I think the answer is yes, right? I mean, I tend to live my life from my deathbed, right? And say, what would I have regretted not doing? And what would have been worthwhile, right? Because at the end, don't want to say, yeah, that was a waste, right? So,
Can you
like
imagine?
I kind of look at it and say, no regrets, right? What am I going to do today so that at the end of it, I can look back and say, okay, that wasn't a wasted day, right? And hopefully that piles up over time so that I feel like there was I had a net positive effect on my community, right? Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm sure as hell going to try.
It's definitely worth trying. And as you say, you plant the seed and you go forward. And I'm sure you have, as it has shown. So this comes to another question, because you're there, you're thinking, yes, you're living your life, but you're having that impact on others and you're thinking, about community. How do you personally stay grounded spiritually, mentally, emotionally, while you carry all this responsibility?
I don't think of it as a responsibility. I think of my work as a privilege. I'm really very fortunate that I mean, people like to complain about, oh, the long hours and oh, all the stress and all the anxiety. But the truth is when that accrues to something bigger than yourself, it's just a privilege to do what you do as long as you can do it, as hard as you can do it, right? So I think there's a paradigm shift that is needed, and it's not a burden, right? So maybe that's the thinking there, is that it's not a burden, it's not heavy, it's a privilege.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's more a mindset shift
Yeah.
that holds you in that. And we do understand this too with Marisha and personally with my work and so on, is it does, the more you give, the more you fed. It does, they say, oh, that's a lot of work or it's long hours or whatever. But either the satisfaction knowing that you have had an impact or you've done something to make this world a better place feeds you. Beautiful.
So, Nanette, the next question is, when you look ahead, what is your vision for the next decade, for Hope, for PCX, or for the kind of leadership that you want to help shape in the world, continue shaping in the world?
I have no idea. I mean, I wish I could tell you, oh yeah, this is all planned out and this is the way it's going to go and I've got it all put together. But the truth is if you asked me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said I would be where I am today, right? So I think the plan, I don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years, but the plan is certainly just to kind of live in the present, be very cognizant of what's happening around me, and try to make as many enlightened decisions as I can along the way, knowing that, the rest will take care of itself, right? If there is some plan for me out there in the universe, I'll get there if I just pay attention to the signposts and try and do the right thing. So it takes a little bit of faith. Man plans and God laughs. So I'm not going to try and say, oh, well, this is what's going to happen 10 years from now. And then we come back and see each other on your podcast. And it's totally not what I thought, right? I'm just going to try and do my best. And
we'll be waiting for you.
Yeah. And have some faith that this takes me, where I'm supposed to be. And I'm just going to try and make good decisions along the way.
Beautiful. So there's structure, but there's flow, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful because, I mean, our demographics of our audience is a 35 to 55 age group. And that's exactly like, if I look back on myself at this point, and if I just relaxed into, and answering that question by saying, I don't know. It's like, that's a perfect answer.
So liberating that I don't have that. It's like, oh, well, I've got to do this in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
I was also curious because you are inspiring. You've got a mission there. And what would you like your work to awaken in people, whether they're CEOs, consumers, or communities? What would that look like for you?
On the business side, I would like companies to your point, awaken to the idea that business for good is not mutually exclusive from making money, right? That the consumers will support businesses who invest in social good, who do the right thing. Especially now, there's much more transparency. I think, companies need to think about not just having that single bottom line. It's super important that we float all boats, right? And then for the consumer side, I'd really like them to be able to know that they could vote with their money about what's important to them, right? That there are companies, and by the way, I think the trust in both government and business has never been so low with consumers because they just, well, it's deserved in a lot of ways. But the truth is there are some companies who are really trying to do the right thing, and some of them don't have the best histories behind them, but the leadership that got them to where they are today isn't necessarily the leadership that's in office today. And so I think there's a number of folks out there, especially the younger people, who are all about change and trying to make the world better. They've grown up in a world that is broken, and they want to fix it. So I have faith in folks who are trying to do the right thing. There's enough of them, and just hope that they are put in positions of influence to be able to affect that for all of us.
Yes.
Completely agree. I have the happy privilege of hanging out with these younger generations.
They want to change. The truth is someone was talking to me, and I'm getting a little granular in the Philippine politics, but somebody was saying the other day, oh, what's going to happen in the next election? But if you actually look at the demographics of the next election in this country, they're not party driven. So if you think about the US, about the Democrats or the Republicans, in the Philippines, what we're seeing is there isn't necessarily a party loyalty when you look at the next generation. They're anti-corruption. It is an issue that is important to them. And that's great, right? It's like, okay, right? Let's take this in the right direction. Let's stop thinking about the politics and the personalities and all of the shenanigans around that. And let's just focus on policy and issues and like something we can all agree on, right? So no, I think there's hope. No pun intended. And if we can help amplify that even just a little bit, then we would have done our job.
Absolutely. We're in for this. So, Nanette, now we're going to change a bit the rhythm. We're going to speed it up a bit. We want to get to know the woman behind all this beautiful work. So this is our favorite little part. That's fun. It's fun.
Okay.
And it's just like quick fire questions. Just the first thing that comes into your mind. It's fun. One word.
Okay. Okay.
A value you refuse to compromise on.
Integrity.
A place in the Philippines that restores you, Nanette.
Home.
Oh, you see how easy it was?
This office.
An everyday ritual that keeps you centered.
I love to eat. I love to eat. It is literally a ritual. Like I spend no matter what's happening in the back of my mind, it's all about food. So I like my team and I like that's what yes, food. And if you ever come to the Philippines, you'll know why. Like that is such a thing here.
I love it. And I love the Philippines, by the way. I've been many times.
Okay. All right.
One word that defines hope.
Work. Not just because it's what I do for work, but it takes work to hope. It's free, but it's hard to do, especially in an environment like we have today. It's challenging to hope. It takes work, but it is free. And by God, it's better than not having it.
Oh,
that's worth
just powerful. And finally, Nanette, you know that our tagline for the Elevate podcast is feel well, think deep, and live wide. So what does living wide mean to Nanette Medved-Po?
I think it means not limiting what can be part of your life and being very open to kind of what the universe brings to you. I think if you don't limit yourself that way and allow yourself to be open, it's not only a great feeling, but there's so much you could affect, right? We were talking about this earlier. One of my big problems is I don't know how to stay in my lane. And that is actually really great.
We are kindred souls here, Nanette.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nanette. We want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Today, you reminded us that business can heal, leadership can inspire, and hope can be intentionally built into the systems that surround us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nanette. Your clarity, your courage, and commitment to impact at scale are extraordinary. And we are truly grateful you shared your voice and vision with our global, beautiful Elevate community.
For everyone listening out there, if something Nanette shared lit a spark in you, share this episode with someone who is leading, building, or dreaming of a world that works better for all of us. This is how we elevate, through stories that shift what we believe is possible.
And of course, follow Nanette and her extraordinary work. You'll find all the links added in the description below.
Nanette Medved-Po, whom many may know for her role as the actress of the famed Darna character in the Philippines, chose to step away from the spotlight and build an entirely new one for others, one that shines on community, dignity, and possibility. She is joining us today as a philanthropist, social entrepreneur, and transformational leader, best known as the founder of Generation Hope and Hope in a Bottle, a groundbreaking social enterprise that channels profits from purified bottled water directly toward building classrooms in under-resourced communities in the Philippines.
She's also the founder behind the Philippines' first certified B Corp and PCX, the world's first global plastic credit marketplace, a model reshaping how companies think about responsibility, waste, and environmental stewardship. And if this episode has moved you, make sure to press subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and every single action helps us bring more global, more meaningful conversations to life so that together we can feel well, think deep, and live wide. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so we're ready. We'll start now. So
Like that's not what I will. It's like, oh, every girl's dream. Trash, right?